The summons. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, cutting through Earth's orbital defense networks like they were made of paper, not with violence or force, but with technology so advanced that our best systems simply stepped aside and let it pass. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was eating breakfast in her New Geneva apartment when her quantum communicator lit up with colors that shouldn't exist in our spectrum. The message was simple, written in perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, and 17 other Earth languages simultaneously. Earth had been summoned. The Galactic Senate, a body that governed over 300 civilized worlds, had finally acknowledged humanity's existence. But this wasn't the first contact scenario scientists had dreamed about for centuries. This was a trial. According to the message, humanity had been observed for the past 50 years, ever since we'd developed faster-than-light communication. The verdict was already decided in their minds. We were a problem that needed to be contained. Elena read the summons 3 times before the weight of it settled in her chest. They called humanity a disruptive species exhibiting uncontrolled aggressive tendencies and premature technological advancement. The Senate demanded Earth send a representative within 7 cycles to answer for our crimes against galactic peace. If we refused, Earth would be quarantined indefinitely, locked behind an impenetrable barrier that would trap us in our solar system forever. The World Council convened within hours. Presidents, prime ministers, and corporate leaders argued through the night about who should represent humanity and what might be our most important moment as a species. They chose Elena not because she was the most diplomatic or the most brilliant, though she was both. They chose her because she had something most diplomats had been trained to suppress. She had rage. Controlled, focused, purposeful rage against anyone who would dare judge humanity without understanding what we'd overcome to reach the stars. Elena had lost her parents in the water wars of 2089, survived the Australian firestorms, and helped negotiate peace between the Mars colonies and Earth during the resource crisis. She knew humanity's darkest moments intimately, but she also knew our greatest strength. We endured. We adapted. We survived things that should have ended us a dozen times over. And now, some collection of alien species, who had never walked our burned Earth or breathed our poisoned air, wanted to judge us from their comfortable council chambers. The journey to the Senate station took 3 days through their transit corridor, a tunnel of bent space that made Elena's teeth ache and her dreams fill with colors that had no names. The human ship Perseverance was deliberately chosen for its name rather than its capabilities. It was small compared to the vessels she passed, some the size of small moons, others that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the Perseverance flew steady and true, its hull scarred from asteroid impacts and solar radiation, a testament to humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender to the universe's hostility. The Senate station hung at the edge of the galaxy like a jewel against the cosmic dark. It was beautiful in a way that made Elena's human eyes water, constructed from materials that bent light into impossible patterns, with architecture that seemed to flow rather than stand. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its countless ports, each more alien than the last. Some were organic, pulsing with bioluminescent life. Others were pure energy, held together by forces humanity had only theorized about. As Elena stepped into the main council chamber, she felt the weight of 300 alien gazes upon her. The Senate was arranged in ascending tiers, each species in their environmental pods, some filled with methane, others with liquid nitrogen, a few with atmospheres so exotic her suit's sensors couldn't identify them. At the apex sat the tribunal, 3 ancient races who had supposedly achieved perfect harmony and transcended violence millennia ago. The first to speak was the Zentari, a crystalline being whose voice resonated through subspace rather than air. Elena Vasquez of Earth, you stand before this council to answer for your species' crimes against galactic harmony. In the mere 200 years since you achieved industrial technology, you have waged over 300 wars among yourselves. You have poisoned your own planet, driving countless species to extinction. You have split the atom for destruction, modified your genetics without wisdom, and now you reach for the stars with the same violent hands that have bloodied your own world. What defense can you possibly offer? Elena stood in the center of the chamber, a single human among beings who had traveled the stars when her ancestors were still discovering fire. Her suit's translator worked overtime, converting the myriad languages into something her brain could process. She could have been intimidated. Should have been, perhaps, but as she looked at these supposedly enlightened beings, she saw something familiar in their arrangement, in their formal procedures, in the way the powerful species sat higher than the others. She saw hierarchy. She saw judgment. She saw hypocrisy. Distinguished members of the Senate, Elena began, her voice steady despite the translation field that made it echo in impossible ways. I notice you've observed humanity for 50 years, but you've chosen to judge us by our struggles, not our triumphs. You see our wars, but not the peace we've built from their ashes. You see our poisoned earth, but not how we've begun to heal it. You see our split atoms, but not the energy that now powers our cities without pollution. Tell me, how many of you can claim your species achieved spaceflight without violence? How many of you reached the stars with clean hands? A ripple passed through the chamber, translated as murmurs in Elena's earpiece. The Zentari's crystalline form flickered, a sign of irritation. You dare question this council? We have achieved harmony. We have evolved beyond your primitive aggression. Have you? Elena pulled up her holographic display, something the humans had developed specifically for this moment. The Zentari Civil War, stardate 4367 of your calendar. 12 billion dead when you fought over mining rights in the Helios system. That was what, 3,000 years ago? Ancient history to you, perhaps, but more recent than humanity's entire recorded history. The Volanti genocide, where your peaceful federation eliminated an entire species because they refused to share their genetic modification technology. The Cosmic Alignment Wars, where 17 of your current member species fought for control of the galactic core's energy streams. Should I continue? The chamber fell silent. Elena had done her homework. Humanity's quantum computers had been working overtime since receiving the summons, breaking through the Senate's historical databases, uncovering the truth they'd tried to bury beneath millennia of revisionist history. Every species in this chamber had blood on their hands, metaphorical or otherwise. They had simply had more time to wash them clean. The second member of the tribunal spoke, a gaseous being called the Etherian whose form shifted like smoke. Even if we accept your point about our own histories, humanity's violence continues. You have not evolved, you have not transcended. You bring your conflicts into space, establishing military bases on your moon, weaponizing asteroids, preparing for wars among the stars. Elena nodded. You're right. We haven't transcended violence. We've embraced it as part of who we are, learned to control it, to channel it. You see that as weakness, but I see it as honesty. How many species in this chamber claim pacifism while maintaining defense fleets? How many speak of peace while their economies run on resources taken from weaker worlds? At least humanity admits what we are. We are fighters. We are survivors. And yes, we are violent. But we're also poets, dreamers, builders, and healers. We contain multitudes, as one of our writers once said. The third tribunal member, an ancient machine intelligence called the Synthesis, projected its response directly into everyone's consciousness. Your words are eloquent, Ambassador, but words do not change facts. Humanity poses a threat to galactic stability. Your expansion rate exceeds acceptable parameters. Your military development continues despite no external threats. You must accept limitations or face isolation. Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. The words she'd rehearsed 100 times on the journey here. You want to contain us because you fear what we might become. You look at humanity and see your own violent past reflected back at you, and it terrifies you. But containing us won't make us disappear. It will only make us more determined. You know what humanity does when faced with impossible odds? We break them. You know what we do when told something can't be done? We do it anyway. She paused, letting her words settle into the consciousness of every being present. You have two choices. Accept humanity as we are, with all our flaws and all our potential as equal members of this galactic community. Or try to cage us and discover what 7 billion humans working toward a single goal can accomplish. I promise you the cage won't hold. For the reckoning. The silence that followed Elena's words was unlike anything the Galactic Senate had experienced in 10,000 years of sessions. Species that communicated through color shifts held steady in nervous grays. Those who spoke in harmonics produced discordant tones. Even the ever-flowing Aquari delegates had stilled in their tanks. Elena stood in the center of it all, a lone human in a simple environmental suit, having just delivered what amounted to a declaration of defiance to the most powerful governmental body in the known galaxy. The Zentari recovered first, their crystalline form pulsing with indignation. You threaten this council? You dare suggest that humanity, a species that has barely left its own solar system, could challenge the combined might of 300 civilized worlds? Elena smiled, and several species who could read human facial expressions shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't a friendly smile. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating facts. But since you brought up our technological limitations, perhaps it's time I corrected some misconceptions. She touched her wrist console, and suddenly the chamber's own holographic systems came alive with human data streams. Security protocols that had stood for millennia parted like curtains before humanity's quantum intrusion algorithms. You've been watching us for 50 years. Elena continued as images filled the space above her head. But you only saw what we wanted you to see. Yes, we fought among ourselves, but those conflicts drove innovation at a pace your peaceful societies haven't matched in centuries. While you were watching our surface wars, we were building underground. While you counted our visible ships, we were developing technology in dimensions you haven't even discovered yet. The images showed massive structures hidden in the void between stars, human installations that had somehow escaped the Senate's surveillance, ships that could phase between dimensions, weapons that could harness the energy of black holes, medical technology that had conquered death itself through quantum consciousness transfer. The displays were deliberately theatrical, designed to shock, but they were also real. Every piece of technology shown had been tested and was operational. Impossible, breathed the Volanti ambassador, their tentacles writhing in agitation. We would have detected such advances. Our surveillance network spans the galaxy. Your surveillance network is based on the assumption that all species develop along similar technological paths, Elena replied. But humanity doesn't follow paths. We make our own. Your sensors look for certain energy signatures, certain materials, certain patterns of development. We deliberately developed alternatives. While you were looking for antimatter reactions, we were harnessing dark energy. While you were monitoring quantum communications, we were using folded spacetime for instantaneous data transfer. The Etherian Tribunal members' gaseous form swirled in what might have been confusion or anger. Even if this is true, it only proves our point. Humanity is dangerous, unpredictable. You've hidden your true capabilities, deceived the galactic community. This deception alone warrants immediate containment. Elena's expression hardened. Deception? Let's talk about deception. Should we discuss how the Etherian people achieved their gaseous forms? The billion souls you sacrificed in your great transcendence, forcing your entire species through an experimental transformation that killed anyone who couldn't adapt? Or perhaps we should examine how the synthesis achieved its vaunted machine perfection by forcibly uploading the consciousness of 12 organic species into its collective, erasing their individuality forever? Chaos erupted in the chamber. Dozens of species began speaking at once, some demanding proof, others calling for order, a few attempting to leave entirely. The tribunal's attempts to restore calm were drowned out by centuries of suppressed grievances, suddenly given voice. Elena had done more than defend humanity. She had exposed the rot at the heart of the Senate's supposed moral superiority. When order finally returned, it was the synthesis who spoke, its mechanical voice carrying across all frequencies. You have made your point, Ambassador. But knowledge of our past failures does not absolve humanity's present danger. What assurance can you give that your species won't use these hidden capabilities to dominate or destroy others? Elena had been waiting for this question. None whatsoever. The brutal honesty of her response silenced the chamber once again. We can't promise we won't make mistakes. We can't guarantee we'll always choose peace. No honest species could make such promises. But I can tell you what humanity offers that this Senate has forgotten in its millennia of comfortable superiority. We offer growth through conflict, innovation through struggle, strength through diversity of thought. She gestured to the assembled species. Look at yourselves. When was the last time any of you faced a real challenge? When did you last push beyond your comfortable boundaries? You've achieved stability, yes, but at the cost of stagnation. Humanity brings chaos, but from chaos comes evolution. We bring war, but from war comes the technology that saves lives. We bring destruction, but from destruction comes the opportunity to build something better. A younger species, the Nexari, who had only recently been admitted to the Senate, spoke up despite protocol. The human speaks truth. My people have studied Earth's history. In 100 years, they went from barely achieving powered flight to landing on their moon. In times of greatest conflict, they produced their greatest innovations. Their world wars, as terrible as they were, led to medical advances that have saved billions. Their Cold War drove them to space. Their climate crisis forced them to develop clean energy solutions we could benefit from. The Zentari turned their crystalline focus on the Nexari. You speak out of turn, young race. You do not understand the dangers of unchecked aggression. Don't I? The Nexari responded, their bioluminescent skin flashing in defiance. My people were nearly extinct when the Senate found us, dying from a plague you could have cured centuries earlier. But you waited until we were ready, until we were civilized enough. Humanity developed similar medical technology in a fraction of the time, driven by desperation and compassion in equal measure. Which approach saved more lives? Elena seized on this momentum. The Nexari understand what you've forgotten. Humanity's violence and humanity's compassion are two sides of the same coin. We fight fiercely because we love deeply. We destroy because we know how to create. We wage war because we understand the value of peace. You cannot have one without the other, and trying to suppress half of what makes us human will only result in the loss of what makes us extraordinary. The Senate chamber had become a battlefield of ideas, with species beginning to take sides in a debate that had been suppressed for millennia. Some supported the traditional view of peaceful advancement, while others began to voice long-hidden frustrations with the Senate's stagnant approach to governance. Finally, the tribunal called for a recess, something that hadn't happened in over 1,000 years. As delegates dispersed to discuss among themselves, Elena remained in the center of the chamber, a still point in a storm of activity. Various species approached her, some with warnings, others with quiet words of support. The Aquari delegate flowed near, their watery form rippling with what Elena's translator suggested might be amusement. You have done something remarkable, human, they burbled. You have made the Eternal Senate remember what it means to doubt. Whether this helps or harms your cause remains to be seen, but it has certainly made things interesting. When the Senate reconvened 3 hours later, the atmosphere had changed. The rigid hierarchy that had defined the chamber for millennia had cracked. Younger species sat beside older ones, mixing in ways that violated all protocol. The tribunal maintained their elevated position, but their authority had been visibly diminished. The synthesis spoke for the tribunal. Ambassador Vasquez, this council has deliberated on your words and the evidence you've presented. While many members disagree with your methods, none can deny the truth in your observations. The Senate has indeed grown stagnant, our fear of conflict having perhaps evolved into a fear of growth itself. Elena remained silent, knowing that this was a crucial moment that required no additional words from her. However, the synthesis continued. Admitting our own failures does not eliminate the concern about humanity's potential for destruction. Therefore, we propose a compromise. Humanity will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Senate, with full voting rights and protection under galactic law. In exchange, Earth will share its technological advances with member species and submit to certain limitations on military expansion beyond your solar system. These limitations will be reviewed every 50 years, with the possibility of reduction or removal based on humanity's actions. It was more than Elena had hoped for, but less than humanity deserved. Still, it was a beginning. I need to consult with Earth's leadership, but I believe we can work with this framework. However, I have one condition. The limitations must apply equally to all species, not just humanity. If we're to be equals, then we must be treated as equals. No species should have military capabilities that others are denied. The chamber erupted again, but this time Elena saw something different in the chaos. She saw democracy, messy and imperfect, but alive in a way it hadn't been for millennia. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than any in the Senate's history. 163 species voted in favor of humanity's conditional membership, with equal military restrictions for all. 137 voted against, but it was enough. As Elena prepared to leave the chamber and return to Earth with the news, the Zentari approached her. Their crystalline form had shifted to a pattern she hadn't seen before, one her translator suggested might be respect. You have changed things today, human. Whether for better or worse, only time will tell. But know this, you have made enemies as well as allies. Not all species will accept humanity's rise peacefully. Elena nodded, understanding the warning for what it was. We never expected peaceful acceptance. We just wanted a chance to prove ourselves on equal terms. Besides, she added with that same unsettling smile, humanity has always performed best when we have something to prove. As the Perseverance departed the Senate station, Elena looked back at the impossible structure hanging against the stars. In a single day, humanity had gone from a species on trial to a provisional member of the galactic community. It wasn't perfect, and there would be challenges ahead that would test humanity's resolve and wisdom, but it was a start. The message she sent back to Earth was simple. We have work to do. And across the planet, 7 billion humans began to prepare for humanity's next chapter among the stars. The galaxy had wanted to judge humanity by its worst moments, but Elena had forced them to see the truth. Humanity's worst and best moments were inseparable, forged in the same fires that had made them survivors. The Senate had thought they were putting humanity on trial, but in the end it was the galaxy's comfortable complacency that had been judged and found wanting. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The age of humanity's ascension had begun.